club, yes? Yes? Awesome, thank you. Sorry, just wanted to make sure, because if you're not in the right spot, I'd rather tell you now than like a couple rounds in. Who do you think is more nervous? I don't know. Maybe I'm Jerry. Do you want stage right? Yes. Okay, we got this. All right, welcome everybody. This is Opening Up Bargaining. My name is Maya Suzuki Daniels. I use she and her pronouns. I'm a full-time English teacher from San Pedro, California. That's the port community for Los Angeles. I'm here representing United Teachers Los Angeles. And thank you, this is my hype squad here. I had the honor and privilege of serving on our expanded bargaining team this last round of contract negotiations. And I will say that working alongside 150 other educators to bargain a contract was often very tedious and very challenging. And if I'm saying this, you can ask the person in the black UTLA hoodie here how it felt for him, or the woman in the ribbon skirt, because they have some trauma to dump, I think. But since we've shifted to open bargaining, we have won life-changing pay raises, and I can say that personally as someone who's raising 2 kids in LA. And we've also won wins in our working conditions, but I think most importantly, we've built trust between different sectors of our union, and we've built coalitions with other unions. So most recently, we went on and created an unholy alliance with the administrators union and the classified union. I said what I said, it was kind of awkward. But we essentially said, we're all getting a contract or none of us are getting a contract, and stayed up all night to find out if classified would settle, and y'all, it worked out. We won big time, and everybody won, so yeah. And you only do that when you're really open and transparent about what you're doing, and you're building trust not just amongst your own union, but amongst unions at your work site. So it is amazing to be part of something so critical to all of my colleagues. They were very kind and got me a gift card to a spa, so I knew I'd done good, because trust me, like, teachers will tell you when you've messed up. And I'm really excited to be here to facilitate a conversation with these other panelists who I'm going to let introduce themselves. So can you all start by introducing yourself and providing some context on your union and what bargaining currently looks like?
All right. Caressa Ahmed, IBW 520, International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers out of Austin, Texas. I'm a journeyman inside wireman. Thank you. I'm on the executive board. I'm the chair of the Women's Committee. As far as our bargaining, so our business manager is the only person who has to go to the table at all, and he can make backdoor deals, and he can basically just come to the body with a contract and say, go ahead and ratify that. But what we have is a 4-person small committee, and they go in together and have a conversation with the contractors and negotiate back and forth across the table, open and closed. And then we also have a large committee. So the large committee is made up of about 30 people right now. And it basically, we send information out to the body, and we bring information back in from the body to the small committee in order to share what we actually are looking for in this upcoming contract negotiation. So we're like the lungs of it. We like breathe out to the local. And then we go ahead and bring that back to the small committee, and then the small committee kind of reports back to us about any steps that have been taken during negotiations. This year, our business manager also implemented a silent observer, so that means somebody from the large committee can come in and sit and watch the actual negotiations happen at the table, which is the first time that that's ever happened in our local, and it was very successful, I feel, to actually see like what they actually say, because you hear it all the time what they say, but to actually see them say it like in person is wild. To hear how they talk about workers and demean them, and we're the ones who make them all their money, period. So it is interesting to see how they feel about us in reality, and that's how our local bargains at this point.
Great job. I appreciate that.
Hi, I'm the Secretary-Treasurer and Principal Officer of Teamsters Local 90. I come out of UPS. I worked as an inside package handler for almost 27 years. I've been in office running our local as a reform slate as of 2023. We represent workers in logistics, healthcare now with the Unity Point 2,000 nurse organizing campaign that we've just pushed through, transportation, public service, quite a few different shops. We're a general local. We represent a little bit of everything, beverage included. Our current bargaining model is a complete change from our local's prior practice. We use open bargaining whenever possible, which is all the time now. We don't run closed bargaining at all anymore. We have bargaining surveys we use heavily during contracts. We use contract action teams to build worker power and run inside pressure campaigns on the employer during open bargaining sessions, which include members in every session. We do regular bargaining updates after the end of each session. We whip attendance during the most important portions of bargaining where the company's passing those really insulting economic passes across the table, just so we can get a lot of eyes on it, get a lot of rage in the room, maybe some loud FUs right to the employer's face in the room, and then take that back to the workplace to get the workers agitated behind further pressure campaigns. Tentative agreements are communicated throughout bargaining. We try to be as transparent as humanly possible. We want to emphasize member participation before, during, and after negotiations, and the goal is to try to move members from observers to participants. So we're constantly trying to evolve our process and find new ways to make open bargaining even more open. So this is a fun forum for me to talk to other people that are doing the same thing.
Everyone, my name is Justin Brown. I am a member of the Brookline Educators Union, which is a educators union in Massachusetts, right outside of Boston. I'm a fourth grade teacher, so proud elementary educator in a union position. So I'm currently serving as the president of a local in Massachusetts. It's in the MTA. We're about 1,300 members. We have 3 bargaining units. We represent a large number of certified teachers. We also have a large paraprofessional unit, and we have a very small administrators union unit. And we are currently bargaining successor agreements to all 3 units. Our current contract comes up late August, so we're right in the middle of everything. We bargain on a team together, so all of our bargaining units are bargained at the same time. We oftentimes are bringing proposals that are going to be implemented. We want to see implemented across all 3 bargaining units. So we have a mixed team of teachers and paraprofessionals and an administrator, which really makes it clear that we, as a bargaining team, as a core bargaining team, we represent our members. But we are now also including silent reps as part of the process, which is part of the way that we're practicing open bargaining and democratized bargaining. It's hugely transformative and has been for our union. It has been for unions in Massachusetts. I'll speak about that in a little bit in one of the next rounds. But we're really excited about what we're seeing and what's happening at the table right now and how we're using silent reps to really make sure that, like Alano said, like the message is getting out to members in a way that's much, much easier than it had been before. It's much more impactful. I've often thought about, democratized bargaining as really doing 2 things. It absolutely radicalizes the people who are in the room because they see the kinds of things that the school committee or the employer or the boss is saying about workers, about educators. And it also, I think, really importantly, shrinks the distance between the core bargaining team and your general membership so that you build trust, you build transparency, you build a foundation of, these are educators working really hard to bargain on our behalf. And you can come and see that, and you can spread that message to membership. And then it becomes much easier down the road to, of course, with your contract action team, with your organizers in buildings, tip the balance of power. Because, we all know that it's not what happens at the table that wins these transformative contracts. It's what happens away from the table and the way that you organize your membership to really put pressure on decision makers. So, I'm really excited to be here as well. So
I'm excited that you made it. He was part of the tornado contingent.
Yes, I was.
As many of you, I'm sure, were. So now you know who we are. I would like to take a minute to get to, like, on a very basic level, know who's in the room, because sitting up here is, like, kind of intense, right? Like, this is low-key intimidating. I'm a teacher, so I'm used to circulating. Can you raise your hand if you are a union staffer? Okay. That's very generous of y'all to applaud for them. Raise your hand if you are, love you, Brian. Raise your hand if you are or have ever been a member of the bargaining team. Okay. So you guys are, like, again, carrying a lot of trauma. Can you raise your hand if you are an officer or on release? Okay. Love you too, Jen. Can you raise your hand if you are a rank and file member? Amazing. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, we're going to clap for staff. Let's. Can you raise your hand if you've ever been frustrated with the bargaining process? And can you raise your hand if you feel that more transparency would help that frustration? Yes. Okay, good. I just wanted to make sure, again, like, we're all on the same page here. So we're going to talk about kind of a spectrum. I think sometimes when people talk about open bargaining, there's a very, like, set expectation, a model, a theory. And so one of the things that's exciting about this panel is we're going to talk about some of the different ways to bargain in a more open and transparent way without necessarily trying to sell you on a plan. Like, none of us have written a book, right? Right, good. Okay, so there's no books by us outside. So we're going to go ahead and shift then to the meat of the matter and talk about how has your union worked to make bargaining more open and transparent? How did you implement the changes? And how have they shifted the contract negotiations? So what's actually happening at the table?
So we brought transparency to the process with the large committee. We made sure to implement basically different methods of contacting our membership. So we utilized social media, we utilized emails, we utilized text messaging. We did a lot of list work that, like, led up to the event, because when I say we did it, I'm talking about a group of really dedicated union members that wanted to see change in our conditions. I'm not talking about the hall. If anything, the hall did not a lot. What it was is rank and file members coming together with other rank and file members to bring about change and to go ahead and enforce that opinion onto the people who are actually at the table, to make sure that they knew that success was success for everyone and failure was failure for everybody. But don't get me wrong, we got a good contract. We got 20% over 3 years. We're one of the higher wages in one of the lowest wage states. So we're pretty pleased with how that contract definitely went. What was the other part of the question?
How has it shifted the actual contract negotiations?
So it shifted the contract negotiations in the way that our contractors, before, basically, they would, like, kind of feel like walk all over us, and they would definitely, like, put down our workers, and there wouldn't be a lot of, like, defense per se. But I feel with those silent observers that they had to watch a little bit more about what they said, because they knew it could get back to the membership, and they don't want to make themselves look bad during negotiations any more than they already do. For example, they're putting knee pads on the tool list. If you're an electrician, you know the joke. You want a promotion and break out the knee pads. So they put that on the tool list as a big FU to other membership. So we had to come back with something after that, and it allowed us to also be, like, righteously angry and to come up with a solution to that problem and basically a next step without backtracking as much as possible, with keeping up with what we were trying to bargain for as much as possible and giving up when necessary. Thank you.
So, like I said, when we came in office, we shifted from traditional closed bargaining that our local was practicing, where you would just have the business agent in the room with the company, maybe a union steward, sometimes not even a union steward, depending on the shop. They would come to the members afterwards and say, this is the best deal we could negotiate. You probably should sign off on it, because I don't think you're going to get better than this. And then that's when the members would participate in the process. And it's depressing. It was heartbreaking to even hear about that. I came out of UPS, like I said, so that wasn't the experience I had. That was a nation-run campaign, so it was out of the hands of our local union. But outside of the national companies that we represent with master agreements, the local bargaining was substandard. So shifting the process, we wanted to get the members out of the dark. We wanted to stop having rumors spreading around as to what was going on in bargaining. and just open it up everywhere we could. So we expanded bargaining committees. We opened up bargaining sessions for all members to attend. Any member can stop into any bargaining session at any time. That eliminates some of that closed door suspicion that we're making backroom, smoke-filled room deals, and having a drink with the boss afterwards and golfing on Sunday together. Like, none of that shit happens. We won't spend any time with a manager outside of bargaining. I won't talk to them in public without a member present, and that's the way we operate in bargaining as well. If we have a caucus, a member goes with us in caucus, so there's never a private moment between myself or any of the leaders in the bargaining committee with management. We do frequent updates. That's really important. People want to know what's going on. Not everybody's even going to participate in absorbing what's happening in those updates, but the fact that they're coming out and they know that they're there, that builds trust and transparency in the process. CAT structures, we've established CAT teams, contract action teams, to run workplace actions in tandem with important things that are happening throughout the bargaining process, specifically timed. We might do a practice picket over an issue where the company's saying we don't need to move on that. It's not actually a problem. We'll have members in the room telling narratives about how it is a problem in the workplace while a practice picketing is happening outside that they can observe while we're bargaining. Those are powerful tools through the negotiations process to develop a team of activists that can actually produce power and leverage in the process. I can't do that if I'm just in bargaining. I could be the best negotiator in the world. Without that, I don't really have anything to operate with. So it's really putting members first and providing information to the members. I'm a big believer of knowledge is power, and hoarding information weakens bargaining units and weakens unions. So everything we can do to increase transparency it's been a boon for us in negotiations. It's resulted in great contracts, and I look forward to continuing with it.
To answer this question, which we got a few days ago ahead of time, which is great, I actually reached out to some of the, so our core bargaining team right now is about 15 people, five or so of whom have been through several rounds of negotiations for our union. They're sort of like the veteran voices, experienced bargaining team members, and we had a planning session the other night because we're in the middle of bargaining, and I asked them to stay back, and I said, hey, I'm going to be on this panel at Labor Notes. I'm really excited about it. Like, tell me about how open bargaining or democratized bargaining happened in our union, because a lot of these people have been on board for several sessions. And they said, going back about 10 years or so, it was done very differently. It was, it was a small group. It was done in a closed setting. It was done with members of the school committee and their hired lawyer, a superintendent. And they said about 10 years ago that really started to shift. There's a few locals in Massachusetts that were sort of experimenting with this idea of bringing in other members who weren't part of the core bargaining team. But there was really stiff resistance from school committee members, from the lawyers especially. There's a couple of key sort of powerful law firms in Massachusetts that school committees love to hire to be a part of negotiations. A few of them are notoriously anti-labor, anti-worker. And they kept pushing back on it, saying this is not a mandated, part of bargaining. Like, we do not have to agree to this. It was really hard. There were a couple of sessions or a couple of cycles where there was just steep resistance. But it took a lawsuit to change all of that. Another local in the Boston metro area, Belmont, with the help of MTA, filed a lawsuit which really challenged this idea that school committees could prevent locals from doing that, and they won. And so that really changed how things happened, and suddenly locals could start to bring in like a few observers or up to a certain number of like non-team members. And of course, a lot of locals took that as an opportunity to really, really push the envelope and start to really push for open bargaining and more members. So they really thought that, you can sort of think about this history in two eras, the sort of pre-Belmont pushing and not getting very far. And then since that, which was only a few years ago, only in about 2000 or 2020 or 2021, things have really, really changed. And the same resistance is there. Like, the boss is going to be the boss and push back, and there's always going to be a fight. They started to complain about the number of silent reps, that caucuses would be too unruly. And one of our veteran members actually remembered them saying, "We won't be able to speak freely if there are." Members, besides bargaining team members, right, which just says everything about their mentality about how to approach bargaining. So now, currently, right now in Brookline, we've got sort of an unlimited amount of silent reps that we can bring with us to the table. It's not entirely open. There are other locals in Massachusetts that invite in community members, invite in members of other unions, invite in the press. The bargaining of public education contracts. There's a lot of interest. There's a lot of public interest in that. So that's really been transformative. And the impact, back to Maya's question about what impact has this had on bargaining? It's been utterly transformative for the locals that have done it in Massachusetts. In Eastern Massachusetts, there have been a series of strikes going back, which are illegal in Massachusetts for public sector workers to do. Going back several years now, we struck a few years ago. A whole series of locals since then have also done that. There have been some transformative contracts won by locals that didn't actually go on strike, but they voted to strike, or they had open bargaining or some form of democratized bargaining. And these are all incredibly different places. These are different cities, different towns, different locals, different members. But the through line in all of them is this commitment to democratized bargaining. It seems like you cannot win these transformative contracts without that first key step of doing that. So that's made a huge difference to educator unions in Massachusetts.
Thank you. Something that Justin brought up, I think, is important to highlight around seeing bargaining not as a one-time event, right? I think when you're in it, you can feel very locked in and feel like this is it, this is life or death. But ultimately, I think we were able to meet last week, and something that I think all of us did was to contact the veterans from our union and our elders and ask them. And so really looking at bargaining as a generational process, right? And so I know I was able to make calls, and just seeing how bargaining shifts over time and you get that long view can be really helpful. So thank you for doing that work, Justin, also, and bringing those voices into this. Alana, you talked about this a little bit, but we've kind of talked about how this has changed the dynamic at the table or within the bargaining room, and I'm curious if you can talk a little bit about what it's done for the organizing or the membership outside of the room, right? I know one thing that I brought up with our bargaining leads was how smart it was to get the top shit talkers, like myself, into the room, right? So that we would stop talking shit and be on the team. So can you talk a little bit about how this impacted the membership more broadly?
Yeah, one of the most immediate things you notice is that it supports what's being negotiated is supported because the members are participating. It's kind of hard to get behind something if you're not involved heavily in the process. If they help create and construct the bargaining proposals and then move into helping negotiate the proposals, it's real easy to rally behind something that you help construct and build from the ground up. We see higher engagement with our bargaining units, with the people participating. We're identifying new leaders. Some of those people sit through bargaining and they decide they want to be a steward afterwards because they understand the language so intensely from sitting through the entire process. Some people are wonks and they come through and they're language experts. So now I want to invite them in for working on the contract proposals after the contract proposal meeting to help construct and draft the language that will be passed across the table. So we are a small local that is building into a medium-sized local, and without the resources of a mega local, it's basically a way for us to have additional staff that's working not necessarily for pay, although we do sometimes have paid committee members, but they're doing it because they're so heavily invested in the process that they're just dedicated just like a paid professional or more so, I would say. So it enables us to amplify and multiply our team, and engaging members in the process it's priceless. It helps us operate like a larger local. it's like a much larger local. It's been completely transformative to our process. And we had some discussion before this panel started. And, I was thinking like you couldn't have a panel that said like closing up bargaining, because like once you've done open bargaining, like there's no putting the genie back in the bottle. This is the way we're doing it forever from now on. It's the way the members would expect it forever. And I will speak to the other side of that coin, though. Like, not every member is going to want to show up to open bargaining. Some might show up once and decide, this is the most painful experience of my life. I don't ever want to sit in the room again. Every now and then I'll see someone kind of working, wiggling towards the door to get out of bargaining while we're going over the driest of the dry portions of the language. But you do identify some people that are surprisingly super engaged with the process, and they become workplace leaders. They eventually come work for the local, too, if they want to, if they'll have me as an employer. Like, it's a great process for finding amazing, talented people.
Sounds dangerous.
I'm sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Can you speak to how this has affected the membership more broadly, like outside of the negotiations?
So outside of negotiations, we gave them education, basically, is how we did it with our social media information campaign and our calls and our texts. We wanted to make sure everybody was informed every step of the way as much as we could. So as far as transformation, we got more people coming back. So we had a rally to kind of kick off our negotiations. There was a couple steps that led up to that, but we had a rally. And we got a couple hundred people there, members, apprentices, CWs actually, who are an underrepresented group in our local. We had CWs there, we had journeymen, we had friends of friends, you know what I mean? We had other unions show up to support us. So it's not just internal, it's external as far as how it transformed the negotiations. And then as far as at the table, having the silent observer was, again, just going back to it, because it's like the first time we ever did it, was transformation in itself, of them allowing it and us allowing it, because they're uptight and they're not trying to give away like their secrets. They're not trying to look bad in front of everybody. So to be able to have somebody else to like show that too.
Support.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
I think this is like the impact that democratized bargaining has on your union is the way that you can the impact it has on being able to organize your members. And back to this conversation I had with the sort of veteran educators who are on the team. They used to, they said that prior to having silent reps, it was really difficult to just share information about what was happening at the table. That it would require email. Nobody reads their emails, so email blast, and maybe there would be some meetings. But suddenly now you've got a group of educators who have been in the room, who have seen the kind of stuff that school committee is saying, has seen the bargaining team working hard, has been deliberative and part of the process, and now you can sort of power map who those people are and where they are in different buildings. And so make sure that, like, if there's an upcoming building meeting, those people can be there to speak to members, hey, this is not only what's going on at the table, but this is how it's going on at the table. And that will, help and encourage people to come to the next session. So they also reflected on some of the changes that this has made amongst members. They said that prior to the open bargaining, prior to a democratized process, there were members of our own union who sort of bought into this idea, very much the boss's idea that like it was actually the union that was like the sort of like radical troublemakers. I mean, we are radical troublemakers, right? But like these are the people who are like the most problematic at the table, and these were the people who were making it really hard and being unreasonable. And it actually, the process brought those members like onto the union side much more readily. It demonstrates to members what an important voice they can have in the process. And you can see how hard the bargaining team is working. But I think one of the things that you always want to consider, the sort of like downstream or interlocking effects that a democratized process in the bargaining session has on your entire union. If you think about like the silent reps that are in the room with you at the bargaining table, watching this going on, being participating in caucuses, like, you want those people to be informed about the proposals, about the language, about the dry language especially. Like, you want them to know what that means and why it's important. Well, if that's the case, then they need to have already been exposed to it, and they should have already had a process or a say in those proposals. And so suddenly you're going back several steps, and you're realizing if you're going to invite silent reps and other members into the bargaining table, into the hearing room where the bargaining is happening, you need to democratize your whole negotiations process, like the formation of proposals, the making sure that educators have buy-in even before you go to the bargaining table. So it can be that transformative. And when people are invested in the proposals before they even get to the bargaining table, it's much easier to organize them. It's much easier to to then organize them to sort of show up for rallies and show up at school committee meetings to start using their voices in the process. And something that Caressa just said I think is really important. It also allows you an opportunity to really elevate under your members who are least heard in our local and in a lot of education locals that those are usually paraprofessionals or more widely ESPs. We call them in Massachusetts. Traditionally, they don't have leadership roles. These are underpaid workers. And when you democratize the process and invite them into the proposals, the sessions where ESP issues are being talked about, that's an opportunity for you to identify people who are continually showing up and being a part of the process. So all of this presents lots and lots of organizing opportunities that you can seize on. You can start to identify people who have shown up again and again and again. In fact, that's happened just the other night when we know, an educator, a kindergarten teacher from one of our schools was repeatedly showing up, and she had been a silent rep many times before. And she's now a part of our bargaining team. So she said, yes, I want to be a part of the core team. I want to bring my voice to that process, which is a big commitment. But opening up the table means you're opening up your whole union in a way, which I think could be really beneficial.
And terrifying. If you catch me smirking when they say silent reps, it's because UTLA never used that term, and I think that's because we're not silent about anything, are we, y'all? No. Trying to imagine if Brian or Jen had rolled out silent reps and what kind of response they would have gotten. But I think, Alana, you said something really beautiful about that it's easy to rally behind something you helped build, right? Like you are now part of that. And that connects to something one of our bargaining leads shared with me, that he saw a decrease in the third partying of the union, right? When you're really deeply involved in union work, then you see yourself as part of the union. It's no longer about the union. You truly feel like you are the union. And now we're going to go to the question that you all came for, which is, why did this suck? What unexpected challenges came up in making these changes? What do you wish you'd known before you implemented these transitions? We'll start with you.
So some of our challenges are that, in theory, for anybody who would be starting to try and make this transition, would be you have to get your business manager on board with opening up the bargaining itself for us, because they only have to bargain by themselves. They could technically just be like, nah, I'm not doing that. And then just keep making those backdoor deals, and you'll be in the same position that you're in, which is why elected officials are so important. And then, sorry, I'm lost in my thoughts. Give it to me one more time.
What was challenging about this process, and what do you wish you'd known?
Okay, so the current process, the most recent negotiations that we had just went through, the challenges that we faced were getting everybody on board, like getting as many people organized as possible, which is always going to be an issue, this going in. But what we got out of it that we didn't expect was more engagement than we expected. So like us making our list, doing our work, we got a hold of a bunch of different people, a bunch of different members who we could personally ask. We could call them or text them, or if we're doing an email blast, however we're sending out the information, we can reach out to people when we're not able to get lists from elsewhere. So it allows us to have our own means of actually getting in touch with people and getting them to an action. which was actually very successful, in my opinion. We had as many people come as come for when we have elections, which is the most that we really get coming to our meetings.
Amazing, thank you.
Yeah.
Some of the challenges we face are information overload can be an issue. You know, I talked about that person that's kind of slinking towards the door after the first day. They're like, I didn't want to know this much about checkoff and drive pack contributions. This is not for me. They're getting out of there. There's also like sometimes people show up late and they want a full recap of the entire day of bargaining, and we can't recap 10 hours worth of intensive bargaining where we've been feverishly working as fast as we can. But what we can do is just say, hey, just keep showing up to bargaining. There's going to be a general recap. Here's kind of like an overview, the 30,000 feet of what happened, and here's the proposals themselves. You want to read through those. So give them the source material, let them have that. Rumors spread faster when you have open bargaining, which I prefer, even though like the alternative is you have a brownout or a blackout where no information is getting out and people think that things are happening behind closed doors like we discussed. But with open bargaining, basically, anybody that shows up might go back to the workplace and talk to coworkers and spread misinformation about like what's actually happening. So you just have to be ready to respond with the facts of what's actually going on. Having the proposals available for people to review, it helps kind of determine who are the people that are kind of like, I don't know, spout nonsense about the process. Members disagree publicly sometimes in open bargaining. We try to do a really good job of coaching people on the front end to let's shout it out if we have to in caucus, though. Like, do that when the employer's not around. We don't want to see division in the main session. We want to be unified in the room and ready to utilize the power of that group without showing any type of dissent or us spinning out. Usually you can work it all out in caucus and eventually come to the table, but it is possible that you have people just going at it right in bargaining sometimes, and you have to kind of address that and maintain the structure. Expectations can sometimes become unrealistic. You'll have every now and then some people show up to bargaining for the first time and they say, I've got a brand new contract proposal. We're almost done with bargaining, but I have this really important issue and we need to get this addressed. And we're like, it's not widely felt, deeply felt. It's kind of like your issue. You have to have that explanation that, there's a contract proposal process and you're invited and you were there and you didn't address this issue. And now we're kind of like pulling into the station. It's a little late for that. Employers might attempt to exploit divisions. That's why it's important not to have that shouting match in the room itself. If they think they can turn multiple parts of the group against each other, maybe making an offer to one part of the group in front of the other part of the group that they know would be upsetting. Like one group already makes substantially more and they want to give a higher percentage rate to that other group that already makes more percentage-wise. That's a way they can kind of twist the process and try to, needle you to get you turning on each other. Participation requires structure. There's more people in the room, right? I might have 50 people in the room for a bargaining session now, possibly. That's a lot to manage. So when you go into caucus, you have to be willing to break out into committees and work on different proposal packs separately. It's actually a benefit because you have the additional kind of volunteer staff that's helping with the process, but it's a lot to corral as far as like managing the process. You have to educate your members continuously. Open bargaining does not guarantee a good contract. It guarantees that the members understand the contract, kind of what's happening, why decisions are being made, and what power exists to improve outcomes. But ultimately, it can go sideways. So far, we've had really good luck with it, though. I don't want to talk anybody out of open bargaining. Those are just some of the potential pitfalls. It's one of those things that with practice, it's kind of like tying your shoes. Maybe it wasn't the easiest thing the first time you ever did it, but after a while, it becomes kind of second nature, and you can anticipate some of these issues as they're happening in real time and address them before it becomes a problem. But they're things to consider.
Thank you.
Back to that same conversation I had earlier this week with the sort of veteran educators, and they said actually when we started to win these opportunities to have silent reps. So silent reps are sort of members in the room, in the bargaining room, when negotiations are going on, who are not sort of part of our core bargaining team, and we coach them, and we remind our team that during the actual bargaining session, when we're across the table from the school committee, like we maintain neutral, like a very neutral faces, and our body language remains very calm.
I tried.
The people are not silent when we're caucusing. Like that's when people can use their voices and talk and lots of opinions. And so when I went back to the team and I was like, hey, what was it like at first? They said actually caucuses were chaotic and unruly and very difficult. There was no momentum. It was hard to come to consensus. It was hard to deliberate in a way that felt effective. That certain union members came and sort of filibustered on things, and so there wasn't really a robust process in place. So I think there have been, iterations of cycles of bargaining where a process has been developed. So we sort of for all of our negotiation session, we meet earlier as a group with the core team and the bargaining and the silent reps. To sort of like talk to them about what we're expecting that night, how it goes, and what the process will be like. A lot of people will be there for the first time. And then, obviously during any caucus and any time, and then at the end of the session when we sort of wrap up and debrief, we ensure that every member gets an initial chance to use their voice to say something. So we do like a sort of lightning round of like, hey, like what is your immediate response to what you saw, what you heard, and that's, sort of a dipstick approach to sort of like, what's the feeling in the room about like how that part of the session just went. And so like everybody gets a chance to say at least something. And that has to be actively moderated as well, because those can suddenly turn into long things. So I would say, ensuring that you've got a process by which you can really deliberate and make decisions in a way that feels effective is really important, and something that was a challenge. And that sort of leads me to like our current challenge, which is related. I'm, like I said, I'm the president of the union. I was during our last contract campaign, I was the co-chair of the contract action team. So I was an organizer in the union. I didn't come from bargaining. I did not come from the grievance process. So this is my first like nuts to bolts, bargaining cycle. So when it comes to those caucuses and making decisions and sort of deliberating and using the membership in the room to decide, well, how do we feel about whatever the issue is, we have surprisingly different ideas about like who gets to participate in that and who has a vote in that and how we're going to develop consensus. And I had sort of been expecting a sort of wide open, like anybody who's there sort of gets a vote. And there was some resistance to that from some of our core bargaining team. And I think it's really important to point out that like not because of any sort of like throwback to sort of like old school business style unionism, but really like it's forced us to grapple with this idea of like, well, how are we best representing members' interests in the moment, in the process? And a lot of the bargaining team feels like since they've been part of the process for months now, they've, last summer meeting and sort of deciding on proposals, starting to craft those proposals. And this is a team that meets regularly and commits a lot of time to this process. Like, so they have an overview of everything, all of the moving parts, and they feel like, so that's really important when it comes to deliberating and sort of deciding yes or no about things. We still operate on a consensus model. But that's sort of a vision that they have of sort of what's best for in a democratic way, what's best for union membership. I still feel like there's room for us to grow as a democratized union, and I think that's a place where we can do it. But it's a tension, and it's a source of it's not a source of conflict amongst our team. We are all very committed to getting what's best for our members, but it's something that I hope we continually grapple with, which also leads me to this idea, and I guess this is sort of the heart of this panel, which is that democratized bargaining and opening up your bargaining is not just you've done it, you've checked it off, you're good. now that we've been through it for a few cycles, and I think in MTA especially, we've got a bunch of locals who have now been through this in Massachusetts a few times. Every time that happens, you raise your members' expectations about how your union operates and how democratic it is or how transparent it is. And you run the risk of these things becoming sort of institutionalized. And like, this is now, so we do silent reps. We have sort of open bargaining, so we're good. And so members can start to sort of check out a little bit and think in the same way that they might have done 10 or 20 years ago about other things, but now it's about this really important, integral, sort of participatory part of winning strong contracts. So that's a challenge. I think we need to, it's always about organizing our members. It's always about sort of turning out people and making sure that they're a process, but you want to start to think like, not only how transparent is your union, how democratic is your union, but how dynamic is it? Like how often and frequently are you really interrogating the sort of like your processes and your institutions to make sure that they're still working for the right people? And I think that's really important, and that's something that I'm seeing and sort of wrestling with this time around.
Yeah, I appreciate that. That makes me think of, when we were bargaining, there was sort of a tension between what was realistic in terms of what we could win from the employer, and then what was realistic in terms of what we need to serve students or do our job well, right? So when we're talking about, okay, y'all, let's be realistic about what we can win, what lens are we using with that? And I think, Justin, you also really highlighted something that I think is maybe, like, for me, one of the big core lessons from this is that there's sort of a paradigm shift in this process of, like, you're shifting away from the product, right? There's less emphasis on the contract as a product and more on the process of bargaining. So you're shifting your attention and your energy and your resources into the process over really focusing on just having that perfect contract, because honestly, like, how perfect are our contracts anyways, right? So, and on that, I want to ask what advice you would give to union leaders and or rank and file members who want a more open and transparent bargaining process. What do you feel like people in this room can take away from your experience?
So, in my opinion, what you need to be successful in anything, but especially in getting, in our case, our business manager to make the decision to open up your bargaining, is group pressure. You got to do it collectively. You got to collectively come together with something that is deeply, widely felt and winnable. You have to come before the business manager with a group of people, pressure them, let them know, like, hey, we need more transparency in our process, and we need it to come from you. We need to know that it's okay with you, and we need to know that it's supported by you. And then also that makes the membership feel more supported in turn, because then their voices are being heard at the table. And that's just one more step closer to actually opening bargaining, like fully kick the door open on that bad boy. What you can take away from the experience that we had is we had a mildly successful campaign escalation. It started with stickers. We put stickers on our hard hats. It went to red shirts. We wore red shirts on Thursday. It went to our rally, our first rally. It went to, we had some petitions to some of the employers. And that went over all right. And then we had a second rally, basically to close it out. After we had come to an agreement, a tentative agreement, we had basically we did it or we didn't do it type of party of whichever way it went. That was what it was planned for, was either a pity party or a success party. And we had a success party that night. But also it wasn't as successful as it could have been. Like, we could have had more things that we got from the contract instead of whittling it down to like 3 things. So as far as the message goes, failing is learning too. You're not always going to win. You know what I mean? And being able to take that on the chin and just keep it moving, because those are just in general the highs and the lows of the labor movement. Sometimes you're going to get kicked right in the face, and then you still got to get back up and do it again. So that's where we're at. We're getting back up. We're doing it again. We got elections in a year, and then we got contract negotiations the year after that. So we'll be ready for another fight, ready to go again. And that's what y'all can take away from us.
Thank you. That was beautiful. Thank you.
Takeaways, I would say the main things, more updates. I've linked up with a local at this Labor Notes Convention that has a really great process for tracking contract proposals and the status of those as TAs in a really awesome digital format that I would have never produced myself. But you can borrow those things, right? And if I have something to share with them, I'm going to share it back. So if you're working on open bargaining, connect with other people that are doing the same thing and workshop those ideas together and share and innovate together. We're stronger together, and I can't wait to roll that program out. It's going to be awesome. More bargaining committee participation, more meetings, explaining strategies, super important. I think as you're running through open bargaining, you may have to, it's almost like one-on-ones in organizing. You have to have the same conversations over and over and over again to kind of explain the process. And that'll never stop because you have new members coming in as old members are retiring off. So it's a continuous educational process. And for leaders that are rolling out open bargaining, you're just expect to have those conversations about how the process operates and why it's important time and time again, and just get used to that as part of the process. Open bargaining, it's not about transparency, it's about building collective power. So some of the key takeaways from this conference that I was jotting down is member support what they help create, so actively engage your membership. Participation builds leaderships. Find those great leaders in the process and utilize them and leverage them to have a better agreement. And then build that transparency to build the trust. Open bargaining is not about letting members watch negotiations, about members realizing that they are the union. So at the end of the day, just do your best. You're not always going to do the right thing in open bargaining. It's going to go sideways once in a while, but continue with the process. I believe it's the right way to do things. And yeah, if you have any questions, call me. And if you have any advice, call me, and we'll talk about it.
So I was just listening to Alano and thinking about what Caressa said and just stunned at, and I'm sure you all heard it as well, like we're like very different union contexts here, very different industries, and yet like the things that sound so similar is like stunning, right? And Labor Notes is so good at that. It's like pulling everybody from different sectors together. So really privileged to be on a panel with you guys to hear that. If anything, I would just like say do it. Like figure out a way to start this process. Like it's going to, back to all of these locals in Massachusetts who went on strike or got transformative contracts as a result of democratized bargaining. They are really different places, and it's really important to point that out. That and it looks really different. Like this process looks different in these different locals. They're different sizes. They have different kinds of members. These are people who live and work in very, very different communities, in poor communities, in very wealthy communities with obscene concentrations of wealth. And yet, like this, they all figured out a way to start this process and get it done. As people interested in this, I think I would suggest that in all your organizing, like try to anticipate what might come or what might be the result of this when you try it in your unions, but especially be open to all of the directions that it can lead. Because once I think somebody just said this, like once you start, you can't really turn back on this, and it could have a transformative effect on your entire union, which is really great. So, and then at the end of the day, you just have to listen to your members. You just they are the ones who will tell you like how this is going, how you can improve, what can go better. But when you do it, it's a really open door to a lot of possibilities to further democratize your unions, make them more member-driven, and ultimately, of course, make them more powerful. So,
thank you. Yeah, thank you. There's definitely an element of commitment, right, to this process, but ultimately, I think what you said, Justin, it's a commitment to each other, right? You're making a commitment to your fellow members. That was a lot. We are going to do some questions But I'm a teacher, and I know what happens when we talk at you for too long, and been a long day for a long weekend. So I'm going to ask you to get ready, teachers. I'm going to hit them with the Kagan strategies. You're going to turn to somebody. You don't have to meet somebody new if you're like, I'm so tired of meeting new people. Turn to somebody you already know and tell them, what is something you heard that made you think, and or something that you're going to take back to your local. We're going to take 10 minutes to like process, and then we'll come back together for questions and share outs. Is that okay? Yeah. You guys like beasted it through that, so I'm like, but I think it's cool to get to watch. Yeah. This is where the teacher in me comes out.
I love it.
Just like watching what people got out of it, you know? So yeah, as long as you guys are cool with it, then we'll do some questions and share outs once people live.
Yeah. I'm here for whatever you need. Whatever we're doing, I'm on board.
I like it. It takes attention off of us.
That's what I love about teaching is once you get, as you know, right, your first couple years, you're doing everything. And then over time, the students are doing everything. I'm chilling at work. Shit, this is so relaxing for me.
What a good day.
People don't believe that because they're like, you teach 10th grade and you're relaxed? I'm like, you got your systems in after 13 years, you know. Justin knows you could do this in your sleep, huh? Justin, what grade do you teach? 4th. Okay. Yeah, so you could probably, you could be on autopilot.
Yeah. You're with them all the time.
Yep. Exhausting, but
As long as you're like getting them to do more of the learning.
yeah. When you have them do.
You're totally right. Like when you start off, you think like the educators need to, the teachers need to do all the talking and all the instruction. And that's what good teaching is.
Yeah. No, these guys will remember stuff because now they have to talk about it. So you learn when you talk. You don't really learn when you listen, guys. right, y'all, we're going to come back together. Give you some time to process and wrap up here. What's that?
So the teacher's about to come out.
Oh, yeah. Well, we got elementary here. Thank you, SEIU. Also, shout out to these Teamsters Local 2024, these model students here. Like, they're still wrapped in conversation. All right. Okay, so here's what we're going to do next is we're going to have the opportunity to ask our panelists some questions. But we are also, one thing I have noticed about panels is that sometimes, like, people feel the need to verbally process, and I love that and want to respect it. So, like, look, if you want to come up here and, like, just share something out, you don't have to tack a question on the end. You know what I mean? When people be like sharing a question, but you're like, oh, I see you wanted to be on the panel. So by all means, we are happy to share this microphone and space, but here's the deal is you got to come up to me. Like, I'll call on you, but you got to come up here because I'm very tired and I'm getting a blister. So does anybody want to share something from their conversation, from something you heard the panelists say, or something that you, yeah, front row, I see you. Come on, model student. I saw y'all taking notes. Do you mind speaking in the mic? Would that be? Thank you so much.
Okay, I just had a couple questions. I was curious how it worked for the, not the silent observers, but for those of you who have people talking who are not in the core group, like how that goes and like issues and how you navigate that. And then the second thing I was wondering about was space, how you, like where are you negotiating if you can potentially have an unlimited amount of people show up? Like, how do you navigate that? We have 10,000 people in our new local, so for next time, we're trying to, I don't know how to navigate that, I guess.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is some like logistics questions. So we are a local of 38,000 educators. We really mostly come together in the streets, am I right? Because that's the space that can hold us. In terms of logistics around silent observers, I want to be clear that like we were supposed to be silent, but it's very hard to silence UTLA, first of all, people in LA, second of all, and us just generally. So there was a lot of like, I remember there was one point when the employer said something and we could not contain ourselves. It was just like, you just heard this hiss go around the room. And I think that gave our leads the confidence to be like, I remember Brian at one point being like, do you hear this room right now? That is not accurate, right? So even though, you know, sometimes you have rules so you can break them. And also in terms of silent observers, like a lot of Post-its. Do you all want to speak to the logistics of expanding and having like a larger bargaining space?
So we represent shops of all different sizes. None of them are 10,000. So that is a question I can't fully explain. We do have Unity Point coming up, which is 2,000. We are looking at renting space at our state fairgrounds and large format places like that. I imagine we'll probably overshoot it on the beginning, on the front end, figure out how many people are attending bargaining sessions, and then scale back from there. So we'll probably have an extra expense in the front end, which I'm not looking forward to because I am the Secretary Treasurer, but we'll get that sorted out. We'll spend the money, we'll rip off the Band-Aid, and then we'll move into the right size space, whatever that needs to be. Oftentimes, we push for the company to pay for the bargaining space. We'll sometimes propose that they meet us at a large union hall if that's available, if we can get another local to help us with that. They never want to do that, ever. And if they have a large conference room, like a mega conference room at the hospital, they never want to use those either because they don't want people walking in after shift. So if you can get to the point where they're kind of wanting to pick and pay for a location, you can just tell them you need a place that's suitable. And if you overshoot with something like that, my plan is to tell them, okay, we'll split the cost then. We're going to have a big place, everybody's going to be there, but we're going to cover part of that cost together. Speaking to your other question, those that speak and they're not part of the core committee, we do a lot of the choreographing of who will be saying what in the caucus. Usually someone has like their hand up and they're like, I didn't want to say anything in there, but I have a story that's directly related to the proposal we have going on right now. We're like, great, you're going to speak on that when we get back in there. And it might be in inflammatory. They might be pissed off. I'm like, go ahead and let them have it at the table, whatever it is. But we handle that in the caucus so that it's less disruptive in the room, because if it's just people shouting things out, you can't actually run the bargaining process in a structured way, and you'll never get the finished product. It's important that people have their voices heard, but you don't want to have one person's voice heard to the detriment of the entire process and everyone attaining a contract. So it's important to kind of schedule that on the front end.
Similarly, to your first question about like speaking in the room, we try to maintain, like I said and described earlier, everybody gets a chance right off the bat to say something and to express themselves, which is great. Then we sort of like take up an issue, and it sort of has this organic way of just like, there's clearly something that's just happened in the prior segment that people want to talk about or address. And who's ever facilitating the session, it's currently me that steps into that role. I make sure to maintain a speaking order. So anybody who wants to speak, just raise your hand. I'll sort of eye contact and write you on the list. We have direct responses if somebody wants to, if somebody needs to say something to inform a response that somebody just gave. We try to Robert's rules-ish it a little bit. We don't always get there in a caucus when we deliberate, but I try to be as democratic as possible in that process. But I would say there's always room to improve on that to make sure that people are I would say, you just need to have it facilitated really well. And so a good facilitator, will be able to sense that like somebody's got something more to say, or like the people who haven't yet spoken might want a chance to do that. On the space, I think that's really important. Obviously, we're talking about really different sizes here. Our local is much smaller. The employer has sort of like used the sort of capacity, the legal capacity space of the school committee hearing room as a way to cap the number of silent reps. And we really pushed back on that because we knew that at the beginning we would be drawing people into the as silent reps or as observers or however you want to think about it. But that number is going to grow, and as we get, our contracts will expire in August. We will very likely not have settled contracts, so we know going into the fall we're going to start drawing people that will definitely push the envelope on the capacity of the room. And we arrived at, if we anticipate an agreement during ground rules that if we anticipate more than the capacity of the room, we'll give them a heads up about that and sort of like decide on like where we want to have it. In a school system, you have access to large spaces, auditoriums, and we see no reason why we can't easily shift this from a school committee hearing room, which only holds 76 people, to one of the high school auditorium, which can hold 900 or so.
I don't have these types of logistical issues. I'm in like about a 2,200 member local, and of those, about 200 show up for even the most interesting of things. So we do all of our main stuff at the hall. Our hall is basically the whole third floor of a conference building. Not as big as this, obviously, but it'll hold a couple hundred people. And then in the parking lot, we had a band play, and there was a couple hundred people that could be out there. So that's logistically, literally how we do it with that many people.
Other questions, share-outs? Ooh, y'all have things to say. Wow. There's so much power in here. We're going to go red. I'm going to make kind of a gentle circle, but if I mess it up, I'm sorry. The nice thing is we're going to be around, at least tomorrow, right? Nobody's going anywhere. Go ahead, red flag. You come on up. We'll just go 2 for 1. 3, yeah, let's get them all. Come on.
Everyone wearing red.
It's an easy way to remember this thing. Go ahead.
Right. So this is kind of twofold. It's sharing and then asking a question in response to that. So we've actually been recently doing open bargaining. We've actually opened it up to other shops that are bargaining with the same company who oversees us. But it's over Zoom and it's during the workday. And the thing that has been frustrating is that the actual people in our shop, we've struggled to get them to participate. So I guess my question is, how you built up that momentum to get the members like there in the first place.
Great question. Yeah, I know there's a whole workshop on beating apathy, right? It's always the struggle. Should we do maybe one and then we'll rotate? Does that sound cool? Is there somebody who feels particularly compelled to speak to this one? How to get members engaged in the process, right? Did I have that right? Yeah.
I think every negotiation session needs to be treated like an event, like an action. So like a recruitment plan for getting people out is, I think, important to do. We have a contract action team who, we have a 1 to 10 network in all of our schools. So like we activate that when we know we've got bargaining sessions coming up, so that we know, ideally every single member is told, we've got 2 bargaining sessions coming up. Here's what we're going to probably see at the table. Will you be there? It makes a huge difference. So we treat it like an event to do it. I would love to move into phone banking our members to do it, to say, can you make it? Will you be there? It's really important. And then, of course, we try to create structures, and I know other locals have done this really well, where they use the people who have shown up. Those are your best people to organize other members to come, because they will say, hey, the best case scenario, like I was skeptical about this, but like I went and it was awesome, and I got to share my opinions about this, and we deliberated over this, and whatever it is. So I think those are things that have really worked and are important.
Thank you. Yeah, I would just add snacks and making sure people understand, like, this is an honor, right? For us, it's an elected position. So understanding, like, you are on the bargaining team, that makes you important, right? That means that you got some power, you have some sway. I had my principal come and ask me questions. I was like, bro, where's your union rep? All right, go ahead.
Thank you. My name's Amber. I'm a member of Teamsters Mobilize and Mouse Communist Union. And just in the spirit of talking about the really important thing about union democracy, I wanted to just quickly, before I ask my question, note that one of our comrades in the steering committee of Teamsters Mobilize was actually banned from labor notes for raising some criticisms of Teamsters national president for his support of ICE, detention facilities. So this is John O'Brien I'm talking about, who is also endorsed by TDU. So it's a shame that she was banned just for raising this criticism. So in light of that, I want to also ask, I was talking about open bargaining and the importance of that, as well as, this comes down to how do our members know how to vote? They need to have this information about the contract. I'm curious what our panelists and the rest of us know about the Faster Labor Contract Act that is quickly going through it has just passed through the House, it's going to go through the Senate, most likely. What y'all think about that in terms of bargaining in the future? Because there's different people talking about, it's a really pro-worker act. But actually, it's our analysis that it seems this is actually very anti-worker, because it says that once a new union becomes recognized, if there's not an agreement reached in 3 months, it goes to mandatory federal arbitration between the union, the company, and a federal board. Then after 30 days of that, if an agreement is not reached, the federal board makes the terms of the contract, and it is binding to the union. They cannot vote on it. So this is a serious attack on the working class in terms of how they can make contracts and actually, establish this union democracy. So I'm curious what y'all think about that.
Thank you so much. Does someone want to take that, or are we? Well, one thing I was going to say is you seem like you know a lot about this one, huh? So if folks have... We wrote an article about it, so... There's an article? And if you want to learn more about this, then you're going to talk to Amber from Teamsters Mobilize. All right, cool. Come on up. Thank you so much.
Hi, my name is Andrea Vasquez. I'm the secretary of my union. It's the Professional Staff Congress of the City University of New York. And it's, first of all, I want to thank you. This is really great to this panel. I mean, GLA was one of our, shining stars when we first did a real large open bargaining last round. This brought back, I had a little bit of PTSD sitting in the audience, but it was really great to hear these different things. And I love the notion that such varied kind of locals, and your turnout was actually amazing. Carissa, is that your name? Carissa. Yeah, that's incredible. I mean, but there's so much in common, even though the unions were so different. So we're a 30,000 member union and represent a lot of different titles, a very complicated contract, and we bargained for 2 years last time, and we had a new president of the union. He was leading negotiations for the first time, and we decided to do open bargaining. It was pretty terrifying. We had 46 sessions over 2 years, and every one of them was open. As someone said, once you've opened it, you can't close it. You can't say, no, this one we won't. And I actually have been on the bargaining team for a long time before that. And I was probably the most skeptical of everyone on the team, because I had seen a brilliant, president win good contracts in a certain way, and that was great. So this was kind of terrifying, but we did a lot of the things that you mentioned, and it was, and I guess, it didn't take long for me to become an absolute evangelical about this. And, I actually ran most of the trainings. We did a mandatory training for everybody before they were allowed to come to a bargaining session to go over things. And we did a debrief and an orientate, like right before we came a half an hour early for members, and we stayed a half an hour late. So one thing I don't think you guys mentioned, maybe I missed it, was how much more work it is for you to do this. A tremendous, and then the reports. The report out. I don't know if we reported out as much as like Chicago and you guys, but we tried to get a report out after every session. Tremendous amount of work, because it's true. People are able and willing and wanting to scrutinize what their leadership is doing. And that's the beauty of open bargaining, but it's also what makes it kind of terrifying. And you don't do everything right. And you want your members to be helping. You want it to go so that everything that comes out of it is positive, and it isn't always, right? We even got criticized for no snacks, So it was really from the biggest things to the smallest things. But one thing I wanted to, a couple of things quick. We have 6,000 full-time professional staff in our bargaining unit, so they're not the faculty. We have full-time and part-time faculty. They have days when they're not required to be at work. Our 6,000 professional staff are required to be at work every day, all day. And there was always a bit of a resentment that they couldn't come as easily as the faculty could. And we didn't really have an answer for that. And I'm wondering, if you have any ideas, if you had an answer for that. And it just as I was thinking about it, I thought, well, maybe that's the first demand we make, is some time off for staff to be able to come. But I wonder if you have any experience or any advice. And the other thing was about we built a lot of participation. Some people came once or twice. Some people came 25 times. But sustaining that participation, do you have any thoughts about, frankly, as soon as we finished bargaining, Trump was elected, like 2 weeks later. We had our ratification, and he was elected. So we tried to sort of, swoop from one thing into another, but I don't think, there was no plan for that. And I'm wondering if you have thoughts about how you coalesce with these new activists and new participants and, hopefully new leaders through bargaining. How do you bring that forward? Thank you.
Well, I can't overstate the importance of snacks, but do either of you, Carissa or Alana, want to speak to sustainability and participation, or the time that it takes, to build something now or ultimately defend it later, right? Which is a lot of what it is. We're going to put the time in on the front end. And as a teacher, I'll just say, you can invest the time in teaching your kids your rules and your procedures at the beginning of the year, or you can suffer all year long because you did not put that in place, and you're going to be putting out fire after fire after fire. And I think similarly, I've seen something happen in our union where now we take a lot of time to build this contract, but we have to do a lot less arguing and selling it to members and saying this is actually good for you because we saw it come to fruition, right? Which goes back to one of Alano's points. Do either of you want to speak to the sustainability element? And then I think we have time for maybe one more.
Yeah, for sustainability, I don't overemphasize that everybody needs to be there all the time. Definitely during economic passes, things that are going to be super important that people are going to want to turn out. I don't want to burn people out too early in the process. We started with open bargaining, really encouraging everybody to be there day one. Show up day one, let's pack the room, but there's a lot of dry stuff that gets handled in contracts, and then usually a lot of that's on the front end because you can't make progress on that through bargaining if you lock up on economics right off the bat. So being strategic about when we're really trying to whip turnout, and I think there's something probably intimidating for the company about watching that build up over time rather than be something that dwindles off over time. So I would rather than think about it and sustaining it, I would thinking about it as building a pressure over time that climaxes at the top where everybody's there screaming at the company about their shitty economic proposal they just passed across the table. That's kind of the way that I think about the arc of the participation. And then it can even taper off towards the end. If we get an agreement and we have a few things we're just buttoning up towards the end, everybody doesn't need to be turned out for that. I mean, if they want to participate, obviously, like I said, it's open. They can be there, and we're going to let them know. As far as smaller groups, another way we work with smaller groups is assigning tasks. If we have a 50-person shop and we have, 15 people are showing up to open bargaining off and on, if they start to participate and they have a role and they're helping the process move along, and we're appreciating and recognizing the impact that they're having on the process, that's encouraging for them to show back up, and they often will continue to participate because they see the value they're adding. So that's easier to do with a smaller group, I'd say, than a large group. The large group, you really have to lean on those agitation pieces. Anything that comes across the company, comes across the table from the company that's insulting, just bring that immediately back to the shop, and you'll drive turnout in the next one. And those are the right times to drive turnout. So.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think so often the boss is kind of an abstract, right? And so as a rank and file member, the opportunity to, even if I don't say anything, to mean mug the boss straight to their face, like, that's addictive. I'll come back for more of that. We can get one more question or comment from this side of the room, and then we're going to let you all move on with your life. Bex, you want to?
Hi, yeah, I'm currently a graduate student worker, and we're in the middle of a very long contract campaign. And I wanted to ask you a little bit more about the need to be dynamic and running the risk of like open bargaining becoming institutionalized, and sort of like how you can deal with that. Like over the process of our contract campaign, like we've had this like steadily dwindling turnout that you mentioned, and right now we're in a position like, to get over the line for our contract, we'd like to have more participation again from our members so that we can actually make sure that the moves we're making at the table are, reflective of what our membership actually needs and wants. But how, what's the process been like of you like reevaluating, like, is the way that we're doing open bargaining right now, is it effective? And like, how do you go about thinking through alternate strategies, or like how has like your thought process evolved there?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Thank you for that. One of the things I think I started by saying that it's become and I should have mentioned this maybe earlier, like the boss has picked up on this. I mentioned that the law firm that the school committee uses is well known amongst locals, educator locals, and in our ground rules sessions very early on, they actually proposed that all of our sessions would be video recorded and released to the public the next day, which sounded like great. We were like, sure, co-sign immediately. But like knowing them, like, I've been thinking and hemming and hawing about this for like, since then, like, what's their play here? And I think, one of the takeaways that we've heard from everybody is that, like, when the process is more open, the boss is more apt to say something that will radicalize your members. The boss is the best organizers. They say stupid shit, and you capitalize on that, and you get the word out, and you make sure it's crystal clear. Like, can you believe they said this? I think that they now think that we're the ones who are going to say something stupid and do that. So I'm saying this all to get around to the point where, that's another way that that we have to sort of not worry, but like consider it an organizing opportunity when now that they're actually video recorded and anybody can sort of like tune in the next day and watch the link. And because they cut out the caucuses, they're actually not that long. So like, how do we ensure that participation is still happening? I think that, I don't have any easy answers, except that like it sort of like ramps up the organizing that you have to do around sort of democratized bargaining, like whatever that means, and however that is articulated in your own union. It has to be something that like you're continually like keeping your eye on. Power mapping always helps. I think Alano just said something about this, like being strategic about like who you're targeting to a particular session is really helpful. If we're pushing for parental leave. Our parental leave like plan is atrocious, and it's a throwback to like a different era. Where we've got it comes nowhere near matching what a lot of private sector people have. So we know that we have a lot of younger educators who are planning for doing family planning and thinking about accruing. They have to accrue and save all their sick leave so that they can actually take the time that they have the right to take off without dipping into our sick leave. This whole thing. So like that would be a great group of people though to sort of say, hey, we're going to be talking about our parental leave policies. So we want to make sure that we've got voices at the table. Being really strategic about that can help. Power mapping, like where your silent reps or your participants are coming from, what buildings they're in, what role they have, like who are they talking to, and following up directly with them to do just that. Like if they're a part of a special education team, like make sure all of the other OTs hear about this, or make sure that the speech and language pathologists know about the kind of stuff that's happening at the bargaining table. The other thing is to get to, I think, another question that we're concerned is like it's an uneven level of participation. We had a huge drop off because we were involved in an override campaign, which is a stupid Massachusetts thing, but it's very, very important, and any Massachusetts educators here know how impactful it's basically. I think California can relate. State law prohibits any municipality from increasing levies more than 2.5% from one year to the next to generate income for all kinds of things, including educator salaries. So all of these escalating costs are going well above 2.5%. So Massachusetts residents or municipalities have a few choices, and one is to take it to voters in what's called an override campaign, where they can override what's called Proposition 2.5. So there was one on the in this spring in Brookline. We got deeply involved with that. It pulled a lot of our capacity away from the table. Because of it, we suddenly started considering a one-year deal for and sort of we had this dip off in participation because we just weren't organizing our members to show up, and we're hoping to escalate it again. So I would say don't sort of beat yourself up if you don't have steadily increasing numbers. Maybe set goals for, at the end of our campaign, we want 75% of our members to have gone to at least one, session, or, those kinds of goalposts can be really helpful in your organizing.
Thank you so much. If you got something out of this, can you please clap for our panelists? We're so grateful to them for coming from all over the country. And that's a wrap, y'all. Thank you so much for coming out. Appreciate you, and have a good night in Chicago.
If anybody wants to talk open bargaining more, come up and get with me, and we'll exchange information, and we'll keep the discussion going.
Yeah, we'll stick around. Just open bargaining, that's real. Thank you, I appreciate that.
Dream teams do again.
Great team up here.
Take it on the road.
Yeah, we can do this.
I'll be more, now I'm more ready.
We'll write that book here.